So let's just look at a quick little example here. So I wrote down a function g of w is 5 minus w minus 10 squared. So let's take the derivative of this function. So we have to go back and remember our calculus, but I promise I'll at least try to keep it simple. So the derivative of 5 with respect to w is 0, and then the derivative of this term here, well, if you remember, if you have some function to some power, well, first we drop that power, that becomes a multiplier. We write that function again, and the power now is 1 less than what the power was before, so 2 minus 1 is 1. So I'll just write that explicitly to the power of 1. And then I have to multiply by the derivative of the inside, the derivative of this little function itself. So what's the derivative of w minus 10 with respect to w? It's just 1. Okay, so writing this a little bit more compactly, we have minus 2w plus 20 as the derivative. And so if we're interested in finding the maximum of this equation, and let me just say, how do we know if we're at a maximum or a minimum? In both cases, we had derivative equals 0 as the solution. Well, to know if it's a min or max, either we can know if we're looking at a concave or convex function, but typically we won't necessarily know that. We can look at the second derivative of the function. Okay, but that's just for your information. You're not going to need to know that for this course. Okay, so this function, if we draw what this function looks like, then maybe we can see this. So we know that at w equals 10, what's the value of the function? It's 5. So at w equals 10, the value of the function is 5. And if you go and plot this, you'll see that the value everywhere else is decreasing. And so it has this concave form. Okay, so how do I find this maximum? Well, I take the derivative and I set it equal to 0 and I solve for w. So let's do that. Let's set derivative equal to 0. So I have minus 2w plus 20 equals 0, and I solve for w and I get 10. Okay, so that actually matches this picture. Indeed, w is 10 at the maximum of this function.